The red lights flashed across the command center as Admiral HFY stared at the tactical display. 3 more star systems had fallen to the Vorthan Empire in just 2 weeks. The biomechanical ships moved like hungry beasts across space, leaving nothing but dead worlds behind them. "How many ships did we lose at Kepler 7? HFY asked his aide. 43 vessels, Admiral. The entire 4th Fleet. HFY closed his 4 eyes and felt his blue skin grow cold. The Altarian people had fought wars for thousands of years, but always with honor. They announced their attacks, fought in formation, and treated prisoners with respect. The Vorthans did none of these things. The door to the command center opened with a soft hiss. General Kethra of the Centauri Defense Force walked in, her silver uniform torn and dirty from the last battle. Behind her came Commander Yulin from the Rigel colonies, his green face marked with worry lines. "The council is meeting in 1 hour," Kethra said. "They want answers. What answers can I give them?" HFY turned away from the display. "We have tried everything. Our best tactics, our strongest ships, our bravest soldiers. Nothing works against these creatures. There is one option we have not tried," Yulin said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. "The humans," Kethra whispered. HFY felt his stomach turn. The humans had been locked in their home system for 200 years. The Galactic Federation had put barriers around their space, not to keep others out, but to keep the humans in. They were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized society. "They are savages," HFY said. "They fight wars against their own kind. They kill for resources, for land, for ideas. They have no honor, but they win," Yulin replied. "Every war they fight, they win." Far across the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his office at Luna Base, reading the morning reports. Earth's military forces had been quiet for months. No alien contact, no threats from outside the solar system. Just the usual patrol duties and training exercises. The communication alert chimed. Jake looked at his screen and frowned. The signal was coming from outside the solar system, beyond the barrier fields that kept Earth isolated from the rest of the galaxy. "This is Captain Morrison," he said into the microphone. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral HFY of the Galactic Federation. We need to talk." Jake had never spoken to an alien before, but he had trained for this moment his entire career. "I'm listening, Admiral. We need your help. The galaxy is at war, and we are losing. We need soldiers who can fight the way you humans fight." Jake leaned back in his chair. The alien's words were translated by the computer, but he could hear the desperation in the voice. "What kind of war?" "The Vorthan Empire has been attacking our worlds for 3 years. They show no mercy, take no prisoners, and follow no rules of war. Our traditional methods are not working. And you think we can help? We think you are the only ones who can help. Will you come?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he pressed the intercom button. "Lieutenant Carter, Sergeant Torres, Dr. Park, and Commander Stone to my office immediately." 20 minutes later, his team sat around the conference table. Amy Carter was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent 10 years in Special Forces. Ben Torres was built like a truck and could make explosives from kitchen supplies. Dr. Lisa Park was the smartest person Jake had ever met, with degrees in biology, psychology, and alien studies. Rick Stone was the kind of tactical genius who saw battles like chess games. "The aliens want our help," Jake told them. "They're losing a war, and they think we can turn it around." Amy raised an eyebrow. "The same aliens who locked us in our own solar system because we were too violent? The same ones." Ben grinned. "So now they want the violent humans to come save them." "Looks that way." Dr. Park leaned forward. "What do we know about their enemy?" Jake pulled up the files that Admiral HFY had sent. Images of strange ships that looked more like living creatures than machines filled the screen. Battle reports showed tactics that ignored every rule of civilized warfare. "The Vorthons," Jake said. "They use bioships, living vessels that can heal themselves and adapt to enemy weapons. They attack without warning, target civilian populations, and seem to enjoy causing fear." Rick studied the tactical reports. "The Federation forces are fighting like this is some kind of gentleman's war. They announce their attacks, fight in neat formations, and try to minimize casualties. While their enemy fights to win," Amy added. "No wonder they're losing." Dr. Park looked at the psychological profiles of both sides. "The Federation species have never faced an enemy like this. They don't know how to fight dirty." "But we do," Ben said with a dark smile. Jake looked at each of his team members. "This could change everything. If we go out there and help them win, we'll be heroes. But if we fight the way we know how to fight, we might scare them more than their enemies do." Amy shrugged. "They called us, Captain. They must be pretty desperate." "The question is," Rick said, "are we going to fight their kind of war or our kind of war?" Jake stood up. "We're going to fight the kind of war that wins. Get the Vengeance ready for departure. We leave in 6 hours." The ESV Vengeance was not a pretty ship. Where alien vessels were smooth and elegant, the human ship was angular and aggressive. Its weapons were designed to cause maximum damage, and its armor was built to take punishment and keep fighting as they left. Earth's solar system for the first time in 2 centuries, Jake looked back at his home planet. When they returned, everything would be different. The galaxy had called for heroes, but they were about to discover that humanity's heroes were not what they expected. The aliens wanted someone to save them from monsters. They were about to learn that sometimes it takes monsters to fight monsters. The Vengeance jumped to hyperspace, carrying 5 humans toward a war that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, Earth grew smaller until it was just another star in the darkness. Ahead of them waited an enemy that had never faced the kind of warfare that humans considered normal. The Federation had asked for help. They were about to get exactly what they asked for, and they would spend the rest of their lives wondering if it had been worth the price. The Federation war room was huge and filled with beings from across the galaxy. Admiral Zexhai stood at the center, his blue skin pale with worry. Around him, officers from a dozen different worlds waited to meet the humans who might save them. Jake Morrison walked through the door first, followed by his team. The aliens stared at them with curiosity and fear. The humans looked ordinary enough, but something in their eyes made the Federation officers uncomfortable. "Welcome to Starbase, Alpha," Admiral Zexhai said. "We are grateful you came." Jake nodded. "Show us what we're fighting." The lights dimmed and a holographic display filled the room. Images of space battles played out in front of them. Federation ships moved in perfect formations, firing at precise intervals. Their attacks were announced with formal challenges broadcast. On all frequencies, Amy Carter watched the display with growing disbelief. "You tell them you're coming?" "Of course," General Kethra replied. "It is the honorable way to fight." "And you always attack from the same direction?" "We maintain proper battle formations to minimize civilian casualties." Ben Torres looked at the tactical readouts. "Your weapons are designed to disable, not destroy?" "We follow the Galactic Convention on Warfare. We try to capture enemy ships when possible." Dr. Park studied the psychological profiles. "You negotiate with prisoners?" "All sentient beings deserve respect, even enemies." Rick Stone had been quiet during the briefing, but now he spoke up. "Show us the Vorthon attacks." The display changed to show enemy battle footage. The bioships moved like living predators, striking without warning. They targeted supply ships, civilian transports, and wounded vessels. There were no formations, no announcements, no mercy. "They fight like animals," Commander Yulin said with disgust. No, Jake replied quietly. They fight like soldiers. The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other, unsure what the human meant. Amy stepped forward. Admiral, may I see the technical specifications for these bioships? The data appeared on screen. Amy studied it for several minutes, her face showing no emotion. Finally, she looked up. They're alive, she said. These ships are living creatures. They can feel pain, fear, and panic. Yes, HFY confirmed. The Vorthons grow their ships rather than build them. Good, Amy said with a cold smile. That gives us options. The alien officers shifted uncomfortably. There was something in the human woman's voice that made them nervous. Dr. Park was looking at different data. Show me the command structure of their fleets. More information filled the display. The Vorthon hierarchy was based on dominance and fear. Commanders who showed weakness were killed by their subordinates. Interesting, Dr. Park murmured. They respect strength and despise weakness. Their entire culture is built on intimidation. How does that help us? HFY asked. It means they've never faced an enemy that could intimidate them back. Ben Torres was studying the weapons reports. Your explosives are too clean. You're trying to minimize damage to the ship so you can capture them intact. That is correct. Ben shook his head. You can't capture a bioship that's afraid of you. Fear makes them fight harder. You need to make them too hurt to fight at all. Rick Stone had been watching the battle patterns. Your fleets move like parade formations. Everything neat and organized and predictable. It is the efficient way to coordinate multiple ships, General Kethra said. It's also the easiest way for an enemy to know exactly where you'll be and what you'll do. Jake looked at the assembled alien officers. You want to know why you're losing? You're fighting a war like it's a sporting event. You have rules, conventions, and honor codes. Your enemy has one rule: win. We cannot abandon our principles, Admiral HFY protested. We are civilized beings. Then you'll die as civilized beings, Amy said bluntly. Unless you're willing to let us fight this war the way it needs to be fought. The first joint operation took place 3 days later in the Kepler system. Federation forces had been trying to retake the system for 6 months with no success. Vorthon bioships controlled the space around the main planet, and every Federation attack had been repelled. Jake stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as they approached the battle zone. Through the view screen, he could see the elegant Federation cruisers moving into their standard attack formation. This is Admiral HFY to all ships, pinned the radio transmission. We will begin our assault in 30 minutes. All vessels prepare for Coordinated Attack Pattern 7. Amy shook her head. 30 minutes warning. They might as well send the Vorthons a written invitation. The Federation ships moved forward in perfect lines, their weapons charging for the announced attack. The Vorthon bioships waited for them, already knowing exactly what to expect. Captain Morrison, Admiral HFY called over the radio. Please support our left flank during the assault. Understood, Admiral, Jake replied. Then he switched to his ship's internal communication. All teams, prepare for deployment. We're going hunting. While the Federation fleet prepared their formal attack, the Vengeance slipped away into the asteroid field that surrounded the system. Ben Torres and his demolition team moved through the rocks, placing charges with human-made explosives that the aliens had never seen before. Amy Carter took a stealth shuttle deep behind enemy lines. Her mission was simple: find out what scared the bioships and use it against them. Dr. Park monitored the Vorthon communications, looking for psychological weaknesses in their command structure. Rick Stone watched the battle develop, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. The Federation attack began exactly on schedule. Their ships moved forward in formation, weapons firing in coordinated volleys. The Vorthon bioships responded as expected, using their superior speed and unpredictable movement to avoid the organized assault. For 20 minutes, The battle looked like all the others. The Federation ships fought bravely but predictably. The Vorthan ships fought viciously and effectively. Then Ben Torres triggered his explosives. The asteroid field erupted in a chain reaction of destruction. Rocks the size of cities shattered into deadly fragments. The explosion was so violent that it could be seen from 3 star systems away. 3 Vorthan bioships were caught in the blast. But these were not normal explosives that simply destroyed things. These were human weapons designed to cause maximum pain and terror. The bioships screamed. It was a sound that no one in the galaxy had ever heard before. The living vessels cried out in agony as the human explosives burned through their hulls. The sound was broadcast on all frequencies, and every Vorthan in the system heard their ships dying in pain. Amy Carter used that moment of shock to strike. Her shuttle appeared next to the Vorthan command ship and attached a device that Dr. Park had designed. Within seconds, the bioship was broadcasting images of its own destruction on repeat, showing the other Vorthans exactly what humans could do to living ships. The Vorthan fleet, which had never known fear, suddenly understood what terror felt like. "Admiral," Jake called over the radio, "you might want to press your attack now." The Federation ships moved forward, and for the first time in the war, the Vorthan bioships retreated. They fled not because they were outgunned, but because they were afraid. Admiral Zexhai stared at his tactical display in amazement. "The system is ours," he whispered. But as he watched the human ship moving through the wreckage, he wondered what kind of beings he had invited into the galaxy. The humans had won the battle, but the way they fought made him feel cold inside. The aliens had asked for help against monsters. Now they were beginning to understand that they had unleashed something that might be worse than their enemies. News of the Kepler system victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in 3 years, the Galactic Federation had won a major battle against the Vorthans. But the reports that came back made many aliens uncomfortable. They made the ships scream, General Kethra told the Federation Council. The humans used weapons that caused pain to living vessels. The bioships fled not because they were defeated, but because they were terrified. Council member Veltar from the Rigel colony shifted in his seat. "This is not how civilized beings conduct warfare." "But it worked," Admiral Zexhai replied. "The system is ours." The Vorthans are retreating from 3 nearby sectors. Meanwhile, word of the human tactics had reached the Vorthan Empire. For the first time in their history, the warrior race felt something they had never experienced before: fear of another species. Supreme Commander Thakmer stared at the battle reports from his flagship. The humans had turned warfare into something ugly and personal. They attacked not just ships, but the minds of those who commanded them. "How many fleets have requested transfer away from human operational zones?" he asked his aide. 12, Supreme Commander. "Our warriors are afraid to face the humans." Thakum's 4 arms clenched into fists. The Vorthan Empire had conquered half the galaxy through fear and brutality. Now they were the ones being terrorized. Back on Starbase Alpha, Jake Morrison found himself in an unexpected position. Alien officers from across the Federation were arriving daily, asking to learn human warfare tactics. "Teach us to fight like you do," Commander Yulin said during a meeting. "Show us how to make the enemy afraid." Jake looked around the room at the assembled alien officers. Representatives from the Altarian fleet, Centauri defense forces, and Rigel colonies all waited for his answer. "You don't understand what you're asking," Jake said quietly. "Human warfare isn't just about tactics, it's about mindset. You have to be willing to do things that civilized beings don't do." "We are willing," General Kethra said firmly. "We must be, or we will lose this war." Amy Carter stepped forward. "Show us your training facilities." The aliens led the humans to their military academy. The training grounds were clean and organized. Combat simulations focused on precise movements and minimal casualties. Everything was designed to maintain honor and reduce suffering. "This won't work," Ben Torres said after watching the training exercise. "You're teaching them to fight fair. Fair doesn't win wars." Dr. Park observed the alien cadets practicing combat scenarios. They hesitate before firing. They check for civilian casualties. They try to disable rather than destroy. "These are good things," Commander Yulin protested. "This is what separates us from animals. And it's why you're losing," Rick Stone replied. "Your enemy doesn't hesitate. They don't check for civilians. They don't try to disable anything. They fight to kill." The human team began redesigning the alien training programs. They taught Federation officers to think like predators instead of soldiers. They showed them how to use fear as a weapon and how to strike where enemies least expected. The first lesson was psychological warfare. Dr. Park explained how to study enemy behavior and find weaknesses in their thinking. "The Vorthans respect strength and despise weakness," she told a group of Altarian officers. "But they've never faced an enemy that could get inside their heads. Fear is more powerful than any weapon." Amy Carter taught advanced reconnaissance techniques. Forget about honor and fair play. Your job is to gather information and strike without warning. The enemy should never see you coming. Ben Torres showed them how to make weapons that were designed to terrify rather than just destroy. Explosions that cause pain get more attention than explosions that just kill. A screaming ship sends a message to every other ship in the fleet. Rick Stone redesigned their battle tactics completely. Stop moving in formations. Stop announcing your attacks. Stop trying to minimize casualties. Your enemy doesn't play by rules, so neither should you. The changes were dramatic. Within weeks, Federation forces began winning battles they had been losing for years. But the cost was becoming clear. Admiral Zexhai received a report from the Vega system that made him sick. Federation forces had used human tactics to capture a Vorthan supply depot. The bioships had surrendered after watching their command vessel being slowly torn apart by weapons designed to cause maximum suffering. "Our officers are becoming different," he told Jake during a private meeting. "They're more effective, but they're also more cruel. Some of them seem to enjoy the fear they create." Jake nodded. "That's the price of fighting this kind of war. Once you start using fear as a weapon, it changes you. Is there no other way? Not against an enemy like the Vorthans. They only understand strength and violence. If you want to beat them, you have to become better at violence than they are." The turning point came during the Battle of Proxima Station. Federation forces had been trapped there for 2 months, surrounded by Vorthan fleets. Using traditional tactics, they would have been destroyed within days, but the Federation commanders had learned from the humans. Instead of fighting defensively, they implemented what Rick Stone called Protocol Omega. The Federation ships scattered in all directions, abandoning formation fighting. They struck at Vorthan supply lines, communication relays, and repair facilities. They used Ben Torres's pain-inducing weapons to make every battle a psychological nightmare. Most importantly, they stopped trying to capture enemy vessels. Instead, they focused on making the bioships suffer so badly that other Vorthans would hear about it and become afraid. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Vorthan fleet was in full retreat. But the Federation officers who had won the battle were not the same beings who had started it. "Look at them," Dr. Park said quietly to Jake as they watched the alien officers celebrating their victory. "See how they smile when they talk about the enemy ships screaming. They're learning to enjoy the fear they create." Amy Carter observed. The Altarian commander who had personally ordered the torture of a captured bioship. "They're becoming like us. Effective, but not innocent anymore." "Is that good or bad?" Jake asked. "It's necessary," Amy replied, "but it's not good." The Vorthan Empire was finally retreating, But the galaxy was changing. The honorable warfare that had defined galactic civilization for thousands of years was being replaced by something darker and more effective. Alien species that had never known cruelty were learning to use it as a tool. Beings who had always valued life were discovering that sometimes death was more useful than mercy. The humans had saved the galaxy from the Vorthons, but they had also corrupted it. The question was whether the cure was worse than the disease. Admiral Zexhai stood in his command center, watching reports of Federation victories across the galaxy. They were winning, but at what cost? The aliens had asked for heroes, but they were becoming monsters themselves, and the humans who had taught them these lessons watched it all with cold satisfaction. They had done what they were asked to do. They had taught the galaxy how to fight like humans. The problem was that not everyone was equipped to handle that kind of knowledge. The Vorthon Empire was crumbling. Across the galaxy, their bioships fled from battles they once dominated. The sight of Federation vessels now sent waves of terror through their fleets. But the victory was coming at a price that no one had expected. Dr. Lisa Park sat in her laboratory on Starbase Alpha, reading reports that made her feel sick. The psychological warfare techniques she had developed were being used by Federation forces across the galaxy. But the aliens were using them wrong. "Jake, we have a problem," she said into her communicator. Captain Morrison arrived at her lab within minutes. "What is it?" Lisa showed him the reports on her screen. "The Centauri Defense Force used my interrogation techniques on Vorthon prisoners. But they didn't understand the psychological limits. They broke the prisoners' minds completely." Jake read the report with growing horror. The Centauri officers had tortured the bioship crews not for information, but for entertainment. They had learned to enjoy causing pain. "It gets worse," Lisa continued. "The Altarian fleet has started using Ben's explosives on their own people. Any crew member who shows weakness or fear is given the human treatment to toughen them up. They're torturing their own soldiers. They think it's what we would do. They're trying to become like us, but they don't understand the difference between being hard and being cruel." Amy Carter walked into the lab, her face dark with anger. "The Rigel colonies just asked me to train their children. They want to start human-style military education for kids as young as 10 years old. What did you tell them?" "I told them no. But they're going to do it anyway. They're going to turn their children into killers because they think that's what it takes to survive." Ben Torres appeared in the doorway, holding a data pad. "The Federation Weapons Division wants to mass-produce my pain inducers. They want to put them on every ship in the fleet." Jake looked at his team. "We taught them how to fight. Now they're becoming something worse than their enemies." The problem was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had been peaceful for thousands of years were embracing violence as a way of life. The elegant Altarians were building torture chambers. The scholarly Centaurians were studying the psychology of fear. The peaceful Rigel colonists were training child soldiers. Commander Rick Stone found Jake in the command center later that day. "Earth Command is sending messages," he said quietly. "They're getting reports about what's happening out here." "What kind of reports?" "Other species are starting to see humans as the real threat. They think we corrupted the Federation on purpose. Some of them are talking about forming alliances against us." Jake felt a cold weight in his stomach. "We saved them from the Vorthons." "Yes, but now they're afraid we'll turn on them next. They've seen what human warfare can do. They don't want to be on the receiving end of it." The final battle against the Vorthon Empire was planned for their home system. The bioships had retreated to their breeding worlds, where they hoped to make their last stand. But they had lost the will to fight. Supreme Commander Thakmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Federation fleet approach. The enemy ships moved with deadly purpose, no longer following the predictable patterns of civilized warfare. They had learned to fight like predators. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his aide. Less than 100, Supreme Commander. The rest have fled or been destroyed. Thakmer looked at the approaching enemy. Once, the Vorthons had been the terror of the galaxy. Now they were the ones being terrorized. "Send a message to the Federation fleet," he said. "We surrender." The message reached Admiral Zex-High on his flagship. For the first time in the war, the Vorthons were offering to surrender without a fight. "What are your terms?" Zex-High asked. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered systems. Reparations for damaged worlds. Our leaders will submit to Federation justice." It was everything the Federation had wanted. The war could end without another battle. But the human-trained officers around. Zex-High had different ideas. "We should destroy them," General Kethra said. "They showed no mercy to our people. Why should we show mercy to them?" "Because we are not them," Zex-High replied. "We are better than them," Commander Yulin added. "We are stronger and more ruthless. We should finish what we started." Jake Morrison listened to the debate with growing concern. The aliens were talking about genocide, and they were talking about it the way humans might discuss a tactical decision. "Admiral," Jake said, "accepting their surrender is the right choice." "Why?" Kethra demanded. "They would not have spared us." "Because if you destroy them now, you become the thing the galaxy should fear. You become the new Vorthons." The argument continued for hours. The Federation officers who had learned human tactics wanted to use them to completely eliminate their enemies. They had forgotten that humans also knew when to stop fighting. Finally, Admiral Zex-High made his decision. "We accept the Vorthon surrender. The war is over." But even as the Vorthon fleet surrendered, the consequences of the war were becoming clear. The Federation had won, but they had lost something important in the process. Amy Carter stood in the observation deck of the Vengeance, watching the Vorthon bioships being escorted to prison worlds. "We did what they asked us to do," she said to Jake. "We taught them how to win." "But we also taught them how to become us," Jake replied. "And not everyone should be like us." Dr. Park joined them at the window. "I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of the Federation officers. They're showing signs of what we call combat trauma, but they're also showing signs of enjoying violence. They've learned to love what they had to do." "The galaxy is different now," Ben Torres said. "More dangerous. The Federation used to be the good guys. Now they're just the guys who won." Rick Stone looked at the tactical displays showing Federation fleets across the galaxy. "They're not going to stop here. They've learned that fear is more effective than diplomacy. They're going to use it on everyone." Jake received a message from Earth Command that confirmed his fears. Other species were forming defensive alliances against the Federation. They were afraid that the human-trained forces would turn on them. "Next, we've created a monster," Amy said quietly. "We taught them to fight like us, but we couldn't teach them when to stop." The war with the Vorthons was over, but a new kind of conflict was beginning. The Federation had become the dominant power in the galaxy, but they had gained that power through fear and violence. Other species were already talking about resistance. Jake looked at his team. "We came here to save the galaxy from monsters. Instead, we turned the galaxy into monsters. Did we have a choice?" Dr. Park asked. "There's always a choice. The question is whether we made the right one." As the Vengeance prepared to return to Earth, Jake wondered what they would find when they got home. Would Earth welcome back the heroes who had saved the galaxy? Or would they be seen as the people who had corrupted it? The aliens had called for heroes, but they had gotten something far more complicated. They had gotten humans who understood that sometimes the line between hero and monster was very thin, and now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences of that knowledge. The war was over, but the real battle was just beginning. The battle for the soul of galactic civilization had started, and nobody knew how it would end. 6 months after the war ended, the galaxy was a different place. The Galactic Federation controlled more space than ever before, but their methods had changed everything. Fear had replaced diplomacy as their primary tool. Jake Morrison stood in the council chambers on Starbase Alpha, watching Admiral Zex High address representatives from across the galaxy. The Admiral's blue skin had grown darker over the months, and his eyes held a coldness that had not been there before the war. "The Vorthan threat is ended," Zex High announced. "But new challenges face our civilization. Several species have formed alliances against us. They claim we have become too aggressive." "Because we have," whispered Dr. Lisa Park, who sat beside Jake in the observer section. On the main floor, General Kethra stood to speak. The once honorable Centauri officer now wore scars from battles fought with human tactics. "These species fear our strength. They preferred us weak and defeated. We should show them the consequences of opposing the Federation." Commander Yul-In nodded in agreement. "The humans taught us that strength is the only language enemies understand. We should use that knowledge." Jake felt sick listening to the aliens discuss conquest using his people's methods. Amy Carter gripped his arm tightly. "They're talking about starting new wars," she said. "Wars they think they can win now," Ben Torres added grimly. Rick Stone was studying reports on his datapad. 12 species have requested human military advisors. They want us to teach them how to fight the Federation. "And Earth's response?" Jake asked. "Command is considering it. They're worried about what the Federation might do if they get too powerful." Dr. Park looked at her psychological analysis files. "We created this situation. The Federation learned human warfare tactics, but they didn't learn human restraint. They're using fear and violence because it works, but they don't know when to stop." The council meeting continued with discussions of military expansion and new conquest plans. Species that had once been Federation allies were now being treated as potential threats. The galaxy was dividing into those who supported the new Federation and those who feared it. After the meeting, Admiral Zex High approached the human team. "We need your help again," he said. "The Rigel Alliance is building a fleet to oppose us. We want you to train our forces for the coming conflict." Jake looked at the Admiral with sadness. "You don't need our help anymore. You've learned everything. We taught you, but you know humans better than anyone. If Earth decides to support our enemies, we need to know how to fight your people." Amy stepped forward. "Are you asking us to help you prepare for war against our own species?" "I am asking you to choose a side," Zex High replied. "The galaxy is changing. There will be those who embrace strength and those who cling to weakness. Which will you support?" The humans looked at each other. This was the moment they had feared since the war began. "We need time to consider," Jake said. That evening, the human team met in Jake's quarters aboard the Vengeance. The ship was preparing to return to Earth, but their decision would affect the entire galaxy. "They want us to choose between our own species and the monsters we created," Amy said. "Maybe we should look at this differently," Dr. Park suggested. "What if we don't choose either side?" "What do you mean?" Ben asked. "What if we become the balance? The Federation has learned to use fear and violence, but they still respect us. Other species fear both us and the Federation. Maybe our role is to keep everyone from destroying each other." Rick was reviewing tactical reports from across the galaxy. The Federation is planning to attack the Rigel Alliance within the year. Earth is considering military support for the Alliance. We're looking at a galaxy-wide war. "Unless we find another way," Jake said. 3 days later, Jake Morrison requested a meeting with the Federation Council. When he entered the chamber, representatives from dozens of worlds waited to hear what the humans had decided. "Admiral Zex High, members of the Council," Jake began, "we have made our decision." The chamber fell silent. "We will not help you prepare for war against our own species. But we also will not help other species fight against you." Admiral Zex High's face showed confusion. Then what will you do? We propose a different role for humanity in the galaxy. We will serve as mediators and peacekeepers. When conflicts arise, we will be the ones who step in to prevent wars rather than fight them. And if we refuse? General Kethra demanded. Amy Carter step forward. Then you'll learn the difference between fighting like humans and fighting against humans. The threat was quiet but clear. The aliens had learned human warfare tactics, but they had never faced actual human military force. The Federation was strong, but Earth had capabilities that even the human advisors had not revealed. Dr. Park addressed the Council next. You asked us to help you defeat monsters. We did that. But in the process, you became something you never intended to be. Let us help you remember who you used to be. The galaxy doesn't need more warriors, Ben Torres added. It needs guardians. People who know when to fight and when to stop fighting. Rick Stone displayed tactical analyses on the chamber screens. A war between Earth and the Federation would devastate the galaxy. Both sides would use everything they learned about human warfare. Entire star systems would be destroyed. The council members looked at each other with worry. They had not considered the possibility of fighting against the people who had taught them to fight. Admiral, Zexhai was quiet for a long moment. What exactly are you proposing? Jake outlined their plan. Human forces will establish bases throughout the galaxy. When conflicts arise, we mediate. If necessary, we intervene. Our job will be to keep the peace, not to help anyone wars. And if the Rigel Alliance attacks us, then we stop them. And if you attack them first, we stop you. You would fight against us? Commander Yulin asked. We would fight against anyone who threatens galactic peace, Amy replied. That includes the Federation if necessary. The debate continued for hours. Some council members supported the human proposal. Others wanted to reject it and continue with their expansion plans. But the threat of facing actual human military opposition was something none of them wanted to risk. Finally, Admiral Zexhai called for a vote. All in favor of the human peacekeeping proposal? The vote was close, but it passed. 2 weeks later, human bases were being established throughout the galaxy. Earth sent peacekeeping forces to monitor potential conflict zones. The Federation canceled their attack plans against the Rigel Alliance. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new human base at Proxima Station, watching Federation and Alliance ships patrol the same space without firing on each other. Do you think it will work? Amy asked. For now, Jake replied, but the galaxy has changed. The knowledge of human warfare is out there. Other species will learn it, improve it, maybe become better at it than we are. Dr. Park joined them at the window. At least we're trying to control what we unleashed. The question is whether we're heroes trying to fix our mistakes or monsters trying to stay in control, Ben observed. Rick Stone was monitoring communication channels. Both, probably. The galaxy called for heroes to save them from monsters. We saved them by becoming monsters ourselves. Now we're trying to be heroes again by controlling the monsters we created. Jake looked out at the ships moving through space. Some were Federation vessels with human-trained crews. Others belonged to species that feared what the Federation had become. All of them carried weapons designed with human concepts of warfare. The aliens got what they asked for, he said quietly. They called for heroes, and they got the kind of heroes that humanity produces. Heroes who know that sometimes you have to become a monster to fight monsters. And now we get to spend the rest of our lives making sure we don't become the thing everyone needs to be saved from. Amy added. The galaxy was at peace, but it was an uneasy peace enforced by the threat of human intervention. The Federation remained powerful but restrained. Other species remained free but watchful. And in bases throughout the galaxy, human peacekeepers stood guard, ready to fight anyone who threatened the balance they had helped create. They were heroes and monsters. Saviors and threats, all at the same time. The galaxy had called for heroes, and humanity had answered. But the answer was more complicated than anyone had expected. The real question was whether this new balance would last, or whether the knowledge of human warfare would eventually consume the galaxy in ways that even humans could not control. Only time would tell if they had saved galactic civilization or simply delayed its destruction.